Welcome to WTAJ News' primetime special, Back to School, COVID and the Classroom. Proudly brought to you by Hanover Foods of Center Hall. Here are your hosts, Amanda Kenny and Matt Alvarez.
Good evening and thank you for joining us as we take a look at what this school year is shaping up to be.
For the next hour, we're going to help answer your questions and give you advice on keeping your children safe and academically on track, whether in school or at home.
5 months and 1 week. That's how long schools in the Commonwealth have been closed due to the coronavirus pandemic. Classrooms empty, graduations virtual, and stadiums deserted.
That's exactly right, Amanda. Schools in the region are now set to reopen, but how did we get to this point? Our Colleen Knutson takes a look at what districts faced when trying to come up with a plan.
It's words many won't soon forget. Governor Wolf and the Department of Health announced the first 2 presumed positive cases of the coronavirus in the Commonwealth.
We have to control the spread of this disease by what we do day in, day out in our daily lives.
A slow start in the Keystone State, or so many thought. But a week later, the shutdowns begin.
Today, Governor Tom Wolf ordered a 2-week closure of all schools starting on Monday.
The governor optimistically starting with 2 weeks.
It's going to be like a long spring break for us.
Make the decision to extend the closure even further.
Governor Wolf also extended the shutdown of schools in the state by 2 weeks until at least April the 6th.
Then again, this time with no end in sight.
We're going to keep our schools and businesses closed as long as we need to keep them closed to keep Pennsylvania safe. Right now, it isn't safe.
School administrators, teachers, parents, and students all scrambling to adjust to the new normal.
It's just harder to understand the material when you're not there with the teacher to ask questions.
We're working on ways to create, workbook packets and other materials in a hard copy form.
But this would be an uphill battle, something nobody could prepare for.
Schools will remain closed for the rest of the academic year.
And one after another, senior celebrations, proms, and graduations, all canceled. Schools turn towards the future, uncertainty blanketing the districts as they try to plan on how to move forward. Would kids be back in school in the fall? Will the virus still be plaguing the area? How will we keep our students safe? The CDC was first to shed some light on the situation, offering guidelines. And soon after, the State Department of Education offered more.
Kids do miss being with their friends. They actually miss their teachers.
Planning for the best in terms of school opening, but we are preparing for the worst.
In the end, each district was deemed responsible for coming up with their own reopening plan, which must be submitted to the state for approval.
Based on those specific social distancing guidance, schools can then personalize those expectations to meet the needs of their classroom.
But just like chalk in a classroom, many of the district's plans that took countless hours to create were quickly erased, changing as more mandates on mask wearing in large gatherings, as well as recommendations came from Harrisburg in July.
We know that the virus appears to be primarily airborne, so we're placing more limits on indoor activities.
Add in the creation of the COVID-19 early warning sign monitoring system.
If people don't do the right thing, if they are not wearing masks, if they're not practicing social distancing, if people are not taking COVID-19 seriously, you can see what happens in a state where the governor and the administration have let it burn.
Now, schools are forced to continue to update their reopening plans almost daily. Some are switching to a new learning model to fit the county's case numbers and district building restrictions. Others are going hybrid. And for districts that can't afford it, students are going all virtual.
It is not ideal, and it's not going to be easy. But after the past 2 months of the work we've put into this, we feel confident that right now, with the circumstances the way they are, this is our best option.
But there is light in all of this darkness.
Class of 2020!
Teachers and students found ways to come together.
We have a lot of things to look forward to, especially with prom, so I wanted to give the girls just something to look forward to and to get dressed up.
And those usual classroom bells took a different tone. Proving that school is more than sitting in a classroom, taking notes, and doing tests. It's about a community, love, and support, even if you have to stay 6 feet apart. For WTAJ News, I'm Colleen Knutson.
Of course, this school year is constantly changing. Just this past week, more than school districts in our area decided to delay their start date to make adjustments to their reopening plans.
And these decisions came after new guidelines on August 10th, the biggest one being a tiered reopening system. The system allows the state to rank counties as low, moderate, or substantial. That's based on a formula that includes population and a positive number of cases in a specific area. Schools in low or moderate counties can do all in-person or a hybrid plan, but in substantial counties, it's recommended students go online. Now, the state education secretary says no matter which model districts decide to go with, things could change as the pandemic continues.
And earlier this week, the Department of Health also announced masks must be worn at all times in school buildings and can only be removed under 3 circumstances. First, if students are at least 6 feet apart. Second, to eat or drink. And third, if the mask creates an unsafe condition to operate equipment or perform a task. Now, these breaks also have their own set of rules, including a maximum time of 10 minutes.
And another notable recommendation is to get your child vaccinated. The Wolf administration suspended the usual regulation to give families more time to get their kids' yearly physical and to get immunizations. And doing so has extended the deadline for about a 2-month period after the beginning of the school year. But a recent survey of more than 700 parents finds most are still nervous about taking kids to the pediatrician, causing a significant drop in vaccinations during the pandemic. And on top of that, skepticism around vaccines remain. Now, 38% of surveyed parents believe their child doesn't need the vaccines that are recommended, and that includes the flu shot, something doctors say should be on everyone's radar coming this fall.
Now, we took these concerns to a local pediatrician who says many offices have added safety measures.
Trying to reassure families, we want to see our kids. We want to make sure that they're up to date with their vaccines. We want to make sure they're ready for school or activities whenever those open. And we want to be here to be a resource for families.
She's also stressing that vaccinating, even during this time, is essential to continue preventing other serious outbreaks like the measles, polio, and whooping cough.
So the reason that those vaccine numbers are so concerning is we certainly don't want to risk an epidemic on top of this pandemic. Things that some of us have never seen ever in our lifetime, like diphtheria, that are really kept under wraps because we give the vaccines. Those are all things that we could then experience in our everyday life, maybe that a generation or two ago saw, but many of us have never seen cases of now.
Dr. Cummings says she knows life isn't the same right now, but as we all work through this uncertain time, she wants parents to remember the importance of bringing their children to the doctor. You can find more recommendations at a number of local school districts' reopening plans on our website, wearecentralpa.com. Just look in the Back to School category under the News tab.
And right now, trying to decide what's best for your child and their education is at the forefront of the main household conversations.
Now, we're going to tell you what experts say to consider when making that decision coming up later in the show. But first, we speak to one cyber school about their increase in enrollment and what resources are available for parents considering making the switch.
Plus, how are teachers coping with the added stress this year brings, and what rights do they have if someone in their district tests positive? We sit down with a union representative in a few minutes.
Welcome back. Now more than ever, parents and students are learning about the different options they have when it comes to education.
Amanda, that's right. Some school districts in our region have chosen a hybrid model where this year students will be learning both inside the classroom while others go online.
But for different reasons, some parents are choosing to only use virtual classrooms. It's a trend, Matt, that's on the rise.
And tonight, our Maggie Smolka shows us how the pandemic has sparked interest in remote learning.
What are you working on now, Saffron?
School is going to look a little different for Saffron and Ruby this year.
And go to the virtual classroom?
They're trading the sounds of the bustling halls for the sounds of the keyboard.
I can't guarantee that other people will do what is recommended.
Sarah Barrett and her husband spent a lot of time weighing their options before deciding online school was the right decision for their family.
The risk of having our children contract it and either being on a ventilator themselves or dying, or bringing it home and a parent dying, or bringing it home and a grandparent dying, was absolutely not worth any of this.
The girls will be using Richland School District's online program.
Okay, that's fine.
They'll be learning through Google Classrooms.
Do you know what a delegate is?
They'll still have teachers. It's just going to be in a virtual setting.
Once numbers are down, once we have a vaccine and there's immunity established, or once we know what this will look like and what safety protocols really need to be in place, then our children can return to school face-to-face once we feel it's safe.
Sarah knows this is a decision that's personal to everybody.
You want to X that out and you can go to something else?
What's right for her family may be different for another. Cyber school in general is a seemingly new concept for some. In March, when districts shut down for quarantine, many did remote learning for the first time. And with coronavirus cases still on the rise, more and more parents are realizing this is available to them.
As parents are concerned about the pandemic and worried about their students' safety, they are having conversations with their school districts about what they can do to get education in an online format.
Tom Butler is the executive director for the Appalachia Intermediate Unit 8, which oversees 35 districts in 4 of our local counties. He says every school is seeing an increase in parents asking about online instruction.
School districts are taking this very seriously. They've learned a lot over the last 4 or 5 months, and I think parents will see that when they go and talk to their local school districts about online options.
Here in the dark. Could you in the dark?
The Central Pennsylvania Digital Learning Foundation, or CPDLF, is just one of those options available to all parents in the Commonwealth.
All right, so kind of put yourselves in a schedule.
Online learning is nothing new for the Cyber Charter School. They've been around for almost 20 years.
We really want our learners to feel that they belong to a larger group, to a peer group, even though they're somewhat isolated at their homes doing their learning.
The school provides learning guides to both parents and students. They act as a partner so no one ever feels like they're alone.
So an important piece of the learning guide is getting to know the family and the family dynamic so that you can support that learner.
Through the years, they've seen their program grow.
You are cared about, respected, and looked after.
With 41 graduates in the class of 2020. But this upcoming school year,
and we are kicking off a new contest.
They say interest has peaked even more. Sarah Hess is just one parent who thought CPDLF was the best fit for her family this year. She has 5-year-old twins who are starting kindergarten and says there were just too many uncertainties with face-to-face learning.
I'd rather be safe than sorry. So when things need to be figured out, it's not going to be figured out with my children.
In person,
what is that?
Or online, things are going to look different this year.
Saffron, how are you doing over there?
Making sure you're doing what's most comfortable for you and your children right now is all we can ask of ourselves.
We're all in this together and adjusting, and I think that is very important to realize. This is not divisive, this is a uniting moment.
It's a time to come together.
Yeah, he's the second.
After all, this is a learning curve for everyone. I'm Maggie Smolka for WTAJ News.
And while many parents have told us they're still concerned about their child's education while will suffer with the going fully virtual, state officials in Pennsylvania are working to pass legislation to help the situation out. House Bill 2788 was recently introduced to the House Education Committee, and if passed, it would give students and their families the option to continue the student's education and extracurricular activities for an additional year. Lawmakers say this would make it for the loss of the in-person instruction and competition during the 2019 and 2020 school years.
Still ahead, have you ever heard of a learning pod? We'll tell you what they are and why it could help you this year when we return.
There are enormous societal and individual costs to school closures.
that are not being discussed. It has to be an absolute priority to get kids back to school for their own good and also to get the economy re-going.
You heard it there. In-person education plays a role on so many aspects of our lives, many of which are just now starting to come to light. So let's take a look at how schools remaining closed are costing families across the country. Before the pandemic began, women made up 49% of the workforce in our nation. And according to a recent study, that rate is directly tied to accessible child care. With schools switching to an online curriculum, hundreds of families are giving up part of their income to ensure their child is getting the proper education and care they need this year. Some moms are also making the tough decision to put their careers on hold.
I had to quit because at this time, for me, my kids are more important. We are more tight with the money.
It didn't really make sense for me to go to work and pay somebody else to be home with my own kids.
Now we know quitting your job may not be an option, so where does that actually leave you? Since most facilities won't be able to provide childcare for school-aged children, experts say you should voice your concerns and talk to your boss about options, which may include working remotely. The key is finding a plan that works for both the employer and the employee during this pandemic.
Just go to your manager with a clear proposal. If they're anxious about the fact you're going to continue to work from home, address that head on and say, I'll do more video calls, I'll send an email at the end of the day letting you know what I've been doing.
And some employers may also let you work partially from home, coming into the office maybe just a few days a week. And for those days, parents may consider finding an education pod. But what exactly is that?
Yeah, they're groups of around 10 kids from different families who meet together each day to teach their kids rather than sending them back to school. Because they're designed to alternate where the education lessons take place, some parents may find that it's the perfect balance between working, childcare, and education. Arvin Hinckley shows us how some families in Center County are already forming something similar in our area.
I made this. Max is about to enter the 2nd grade at Lamont Elementary School. Amidst the pandemic, his parents have decided to keep him home, enrolling him in the school's virtual academy.
He's also an only child, so to keep him from going a little stir crazy and us too, we've we've created a social bubble.
With another family they know with 2 kids in Boalsburg.
We're co-bubbling with them. We're functionally a family now of 8 instead of 3.
The 3 kids will take online classes in a similar space each day, trading off between houses.
Has to be trust-based. You have to, I guess a trust but verify. It's like you have to know the people well enough. You have to be honest about the interactions and concerns you have, and you have to trust that they're doing the same.
Ready, steady, go! Charlene and Steven say the best part of the co-bubble for Max is being able to keep him active.
He's spending a lot more time doing interesting field trips, like we've gone on a lot of hikes. We've done nature walks. We've been using Google Lens to learn about all the insects in the area. He's been doing a lot of gardening. We're a big gardening family, and he's actually making decisions as to what to plant and what plants get along with each other. So these are things that you wouldn't do in a normal school setting. Hopefully it'll prove productive.
That was Evan Hinckley reporting. Now, some experts recommend you talk to your school administrators before leaving public school for a pod to see what impact that might have.
And if that isn't an option either, try looking to see if anyone is offering special help in your community. We caught up with one pastor looking to help folks in Clearfield County. Here's why he chose to step up.
Students in the Clearfield Area School District will be going to school every other day based off of rules from the State Department of Education.
And we started to hear from within our own congregation and just from those in the community about like how they didn't know how they would balance their work schedules, because it's not like you could take off every other day.
That's when Trinity United Methodist Church Clearfield, Pastor TJ McCabe, says they decided to offer childcare and tutoring for 1st through 6th grade students at their church. It would be called Trinity Kingdom. He says substitute teachers will be the tutors.
We wanted to work with substitute teachers so that they'd have an understanding of the work that would be coming home from the school, and in some cases even have relationships with the teachers that the students have.
Students would have their temperature taken every day, wear masks, and socially distance during the day. Also, only certain students would qualify.
We felt like if we did have multiple school districts, that there was a possibility that if there was an outbreak in one school, that we were just going to help spread it to the next school district. So it is limited to the Clearfield area school district.
It's also limited to students going to school every other day, not online. The church is waiting for more interest from parents to get the program ready to go. David Kaplan, WTAJ News.
When we return, I sit down one-on-one with a representative of one of the largest teachers' unions in the state. What rights do teachers have, and how are they feeling, are just some of the questions we'll answer. Christopher Lilienthal from the Pennsylvania State Education Association, thanks so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
I know we've heard a lot from the parents, we've also heard from students, but collectively, how are teachers feeling about returning to school in the fall?
Every time I talk to a teacher or a paraprofessional or even office workers and cafeteria workers, the first thing they say is, we really missed being with the students in the spring. We really want to be back in the schools. We want to be back in our classrooms. We want to see the students again. That is universal. I hear that over and over and over again. The key question for our educators is, will it be safe? Will it be safe for the staff as well as for the students and for their families back home? So at PSEA, we have been focused since the beginning, since the spring, on what do we need to do to keep everyone safe and healthy in the school environment.
Are there any rights that teachers or educators should know about that they have? I mean, because it is kind of a scary situation to have to go to work with kids who are likely not always going to wear their mask and they're not always going to listen. So are there any rights that teachers should know that they have?
Well, one way that PSEA has been working with our members who may have health concerns or be immunocompromised, we've been advising them about certain accommodations that might be available to them under the Americans with Disabilities Act and helping them kind of navigate that process. And certainly, we certainly have been advocating for strong, enforceable state safety measures, making sure that if there is a situation where many students or staff or visitors aren't wearing masks, that there's procedures for addressing that. Because I mean, safety plans are only as good as, as the follow through and the implementation.
And I can't imagine the mental health toll this could be taking on our educators. It's a big responsibility to have all of these kids that you're in charge of taking care of throughout the day and trying to keep them safe. Is there resources in terms of mental health help? Because I can't imagine the stress that these teachers will be feeling this next school year.
You're absolutely right about that. And this pandemic has taken a mental health toll on many people, but educators and support professionals in particular, because of the level of responsibility that they have and the importance of what they do every day. PSEA has strived to provide those opportunities to our members. We've offered a series of webinars through the summer, kind of live Zoom meetings. We call them Wellness Wednesday, where there's some focus on mental health and procedures and steps and ideas that people can take to relieve stress. At the end of the day, I think the best way that we can support the mental health of our educators, for all the school district leaders out there watching, for all the parents out there watching, that is to just support your educators and support professionals. Be a partner with them. Work with your kids to make sure that they are able to wear their masks at school. Work with them to model good social distancing and respect, and and really just be a strong partner, because we're living in very unusual times. It is a school year like no other.
And so, Chris, do you think that this pandemic has really made people realize the importance of educators? I mean, as essential workers?
I think that many parents, many community members this year more than ever have an appreciation for everything that educators and support professionals do on a daily basis. They really do have a tremendous impact on the lives of our students. And I think their commitment is reflected in the fact that so many do want to get back into the classroom. But I've never ceased to be impressed with how much our educators want to keep giving and want to keep making a difference in the lives of students.
All right, great. Chris Lilienthal from PSEA, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And still ahead, torn between sending your child to school or going virtual? We'll tell you what one local doctor says to consider.
Welcome back. As parents weigh their options for school this year, many are struggling to decide which is the best choice for their child.
Our Amanda Lee took some of the most commonly asked questions to a local pediatrician for answers. She shows us what you should consider and what you can do to protect your child and yourself before the first day back to school.
It's not an easy decision whether or not to send your child to a place where they'll be around dozens of other children for an 8-hour period. But there are some things to consider.
In my opinion, as a professional, so far it's safe to go to school, but we have to make sure the school has to do what it's supposed to make sure return to school will be safe.
Altoona pediatrician Dr. Nader Yunus says a safe return to school means that your district is making safe decisions. And for parents, it's not just a yes or no choice.
There's no right fit, there's no one policy. You have to see your community, you have to see the cases. But usually there's a guideline.
For parents that choose to send their child back to school, Dr. Yunus says the teaching first starts at home.
Good hand washing, wearing masks, and social distancing, this is a basic.
Dr. Yunus says when it comes to social distancing, 6 feet is preferred, but 3 feet can also be safe. So when should you consider keeping your child at home?
For somebody who has immunocompromised household, somebody in cancer treatment, those families, they should think about it before sending their kids to school and see if there's any alternative it can fit their need.
Dr. Yunus also says if you're having back-to-school anxiety, it's better to be safe and find an alternative than to live in fear. In Altoona, I'm Amanda Lee, WTAJ News.
Aside from washing hands, social distancing, and mask wearing, there's a couple of other things you can do to make the school year safer and easier for your child. First, if you choose in-person schooling, be sure to check your child's temperature each day and ask how they're feeling. If you choose a remote option, make sure there is a structured routine. For instance, getting up for school at the same time every day. Doctors are also recommending kids get exercise and have social interaction in both cases, as long as it's socially distanced.
Getting some physical activity on a consistent basis, whether it be, walking the dog or some scheduled time playing outside or bike rides or things along those nature are really important to overall health.
Now, when it comes to masking, parents with young children may be facing yet another challenge: how to keep them to keep it on when they don't really want to. This could be because they are too young to understand the significance of wearing one like we do. And a local expert we spoke with about this says positive reinforcement is one of the best ways to encourage your child. She adds that negative reinforcement could push kids down to shut down entirely and not listen at all.
Hey, little Johnny, just please keep your masks up. That's normally all it takes. We don't want to be battering it into the children that they have to keep their masks up at all times. If they have to step away and take a breather, absolutely. They can go in their own corner, they could pull it down, they can take a breather, and then they can come back to what we were doing.
And if children still don't want to wear a mask, try putting a superhero or favorite TV character on the mask. STEM says that could always help.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Could be good.
And a key part of keeping everyone healthy is taking those safety measures beyond the classroom and the home. For instance, transportation. Most of us remember what riding the bus was like. So how are those services adapting to these times, and what can you do to help? Each district is working with their own busing companies, so plans do vary. Many involve staggered schedules, limited and assigned seating, and health checks. Some school districts are also asking parents to drive their children when possible.
And one of the biggest controversies surrounding safety is whether or not to allow fall sports. When we come back, we'll hear why many feel the season should still go on. And as we know, COVID-19's impact is widespread across our lives, including with sports. Now, as we know, Governor Tom Wolf said he doesn't want sports this fall. The PIAA, they're still about to make a decision. Our Jack Washer shows us why this runs much deeper than on the field.
Going on the field, it's a happy place for me. Like anything that's in my mind, it just disappears.
To many, it's a hobby, but to me, it's more of a lifestyle.
I would rather be out there and playing than anything else.
As a parent, it's one of the most rewarding things I think that that you can see your kid do is just enjoy and play something that they love to do.
It's more than a game to most high school athletes.
If I had to go home and do nothing after school, I don't even know what I would be doing with my time if I wasn't playing sports.
But now the sports they love are under attack.
The guidance from us, recommendation is that we don't do any sports until January 1st.
Those 5 seconds sending shockwaves across the state.
I'm pretty nervous because I don't know if everything I work for is going to be thrown away.
Impacting athletes, parents.
We feel very helpless.
It's heart-wrenching as a parent to sit and watch your kid go through that.
Dealing with the most frustrating option, the unknown.
It's hard to watch and have the uncertainty of not knowing if they're going to play their season, their sport they love, and what they've worked so hard for.
When all this went down in the spring, I had a lot of kids cried and a lot of hearts were broken over having their season canceled and them not having the chance to shine. And I would hate to see the same thing happen.
Now all they want is another shot.
If no fans, very strict rules, like I don't care. I just want to be out there for my senior season that I've been looking forward to since how many years ago.
It's more than a game, and it's emphasized now more than ever.
If I just be able to play my last senior season with my friends and buddies that I've been growing up with my whole life, I'll be really appreciative.
The things we took for granted before, we appreciate a lot more now because we recognize how quickly it can disappear, how quickly it can go away.
And the PIAA has been talking to the Wolf administration and holding meetings to make a decision, one that they say could be announced as soon as tomorrow. In the meantime, these recommendations are also shaping the future of sports as a whole. Lawmakers in Harrisburg have introduced legislation that would allow local school districts to make decisions regarding fall sports and extracurricular activities instead of the governor. Representative Mike Reese, who introduced the bill, says the governor's announcement to stop all high school sports until January 1st came as a complete shock to students, parents, and the PIAA. Officials feel these should be local decisions driven by local circumstances. And I remember playing sports in high school, playing football, not having a season to go to would be probably pretty difficult for a lot of the students out there.
Yeah, I cannot imagine, especially when you work your whole high school career for something and not really to have your senior season too. It's gotta be really tough.
It's a 1-2 punch. You have the academics that you need to learn about different things in schooling, but then also sports is just a good balance with both of those things.
Socially too, and also physically. It's great for your mental health.
Totally.
And for your body.
So you played sports in high school?
Yes, I played volleyball and softball.
All right, volleyball and softball.
Yeah.
I played football, played quarterback, so.
I can see that, you're taller than
Thank
me.
you.
All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, the school debate isn't just a problem we face here in Pennsylvania. It's a discussion almost every family is having across the country, and it's even in our nation's capital.
Kelly Meyer talks with lawmakers about how they feel about the decision and what they can do to help keep students, teachers, and parents staying safe, and has a look at school districts around the country.
The debate about how to go back to school in person or online or both continues to divide Americans.
This is really, really a hard situation.
In Florida, one school district rolled back its plan for virtual learning after the state threatened to take away its funding.
You shouldn't have the state of Florida threatening a local school board that listened to public health experts.
Florida Congresswoman Democrat Kathy Castor says that Tampa area school district was told that it wasn't safe to fully reopen.
Hillsborough County schools had it right.
I think they should provide an option to the parents in their district.
But Florida Republican Greg Stubbe is pleased the school switched gears.
I think it should go back to what is best for the children.
And what's best for the children is at the heart of the debate.
To open schools, in my opinion, should not be an option.
Georgia Republican Congressman Jody Hice says schools should open because kids are the safest from the virus.
The chances of them having any serious outcomes from COVID is extremely rare.
The CDC says children don't appear to be affected by COVID as seriously as adults, but they are not immune. North Carolina Democrat David Price says Congress should help schools get the money they need to open safely.
I think it's one of the hardest aspects of this pandemic, but I also admire what they're doing and I want to be helpful.
Congress can't be helpful anytime soon as it's in recess now until after Labor Day. So far, without a deal on additional COVID-19 relief. Reporting in Washington, I'm Kelly Meyer.
Still to come, experts have put together a makeshift checklist for parents.
And we'll tell you what they recommend you should prepare for this year. That's next.
Welcome back. Experts from all over the country recently came together to help parents and students with these ever-changing guidelines, multiple learning options, and uncertainty.
Definitely uncharted waters. Now, while it may not be a typical back-to-school list, it does give parents a few things to check to make sure kids are able to have the safest experience possible. Now, first on the list, never send your kids to school sick. Instead, develop a routine to check your child for a fever each morning and make sure there are no other signs of illness.
Next, bring your own school supplies. This year, many schools will not be able to provide communal supplies of the basics like pencils, pens, and highlighters.
Another item to pick up, hand sanitizer. Now, when choosing, remember kids should have a 60% or higher alcohol-based product, which kills most types of bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Now, this will be especially helpful if your child is riding the bus, if they are young, and be sure to practice using it a few times before sending them off.
And masks are required, so make sure to have a supply on hand. Experts also recommend practicing wearing them and use a gradual scale to build up the longer period of time.
And another thing to make the checklist, coming up with a back from school protocol. This includes immediately sanitizing your child's hands and changing their clothes and shoes, and experts recommend putting them directly in the laundry or a designated area.
And last on their back to school musts, stay positive. Many say the overarching essential for this school year is a good mindset. Now remember, as parents, you are constantly teaching your children. So if your children see you speaking optimistically about the upcoming year, they are more likely to have that attitude. Maintaining a sense of flexibility and patience is also key. Those last ones, I think those are really crucial.
Totally true. Positivity is the way to go, especially in these uncharted waters right now. I know it's a difficult time for everyone, but I think that, with these kind of, rules and things that we can stick to stay safe, I think we'll be all right.
Absolutely. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, Matt, I know this was a lot to unpack, a full hour of information for you and your families. I know it's something that a lot of people are discussing right now.
Yeah, totally. This is a very, very big topic. As I said before, uncharted waters, and the choices are out there. You've got the hybrid models. You got a number of different things going on with all the districts in the area. I think everything's going to be hopefully moving as smooth as possible.
Absolutely. And we certainly hope that we answered some of your questions and helped to ease your stress tonight.
Now, WTAJ will continue to be here with the latest updates concerning the school year and your family's health and safety, and we've got you covered online too. Just head to wearecentralpa.com.
Now we hope you have a wonderful night and a very safe school year.
Thanks for watching WTAJ News Primetime Special, Back to School, COVID in the Classroom. Proudly brought to you by Hanover Foods of Center Hall. For the latest back-to-school information, stay with WTAJ News on air and online at wearecentralpa.com.